Oh my god, open up the cough. That's phenomenal. My last review of the day is going to be where I've just kind of finished up in the Stephen King Dark Tower expanded read, which is the fourth book. Um, Wizard and Glass. I would say and the Glass, Wizard and Glass. It's fourth book, longest book. I think actually in the whole series, even longer than the last one. It's Chunky Boy. It's like almost 900 pages. Let me look. Yep, 900 or 895. So this is big. For those who don't know, it's probably one of the most titular novels in the series. It is, from what I've seen online and my personal experience, a lot of people either love it, like think it's really good, or they really dislike it, and think it's the weakest in the series, one of the weakest Stephen King books. That's what's fun about life. It's fun about all this stuff. Is everyone has their own opinion, and there's no one objectively right. There are times when you can tell an objective lack of effort or stuff, but for the most part, a lot of it's subjective. So this book has like the first roughly 100 pages, normal. We're following the quartet, and about the last 50, I think, ish pages, 100 pages, quartet. Everything in between, it's about like 700 pages, give or take, is Roland backstory. When I heard that, when I figured out what this was, I was jacked. I thought it'd be so good. And I think I might be a little bit on the odd one out with these books. I don't hate it, and I don't love it. I just thought it was the backstory starts out, and it starts out painstakingly slow. Um, I was speed reading, and you don't want to. I mean, a good benchmark is the stand. The stand was I think like 1,200 pages, so a decent chunk in this boy. And I had about a 200-ish page stretch, maybe almost 300, where I was just like, no. I think I read the first like 300 pages, was super invested in the stand, lost interest for about 100, 200. Um, got interest again, and lost it for about another 100 or so, which is not good. It tends to happen in longer books, especially if they're not for you. I'm always obsessed with longer books. I love length. I don't know why. I'm just always love a good fat book. I love just getting lost. So it's not that I don't think I have the attention span. Like some of my favorites are longer novels. But compared to Stand, I think I was lost in this novel for about 300 page, maybe 400 pages, which is not near as good because that's almost half of the book I just didn't care for. When I didn't care for, I'm reading it. I want to see what's going on, but I'm like speed reading. I'm doing this thing where I'm like going like and I'm not skimming it. I'm reading it, but it's just very fast. Versus like when I'm getting immersed, I like kind of hole in the words, I enunciate, I really get lost in the text. And the backstory starts off very slow. The ending was almost just extremely. It wasn't anticlimactic. It was just like it was just what is it? It's not like over climatic or like some crazy. It was just climatic. It was just natural. It was just like okay, yeah, kind of slow. Like okay, man. The parts I found loving the most were the pages up until the backstory. The last 100 pages or so, maybe 200 of the backstory, and then the 100 pages after he's telling the story when the system kind of back on their regular journey. A lot of the backstory I didn't care for. And this is really a bummer. I love Rollins, my favorite characters. I think in all of fiction that I've read so far. I love how layered he is. I love him. I love him. I love the idea. I love cowboys. I just was bored. The characters in the backstory were beyond forgettable. The love interest was supposed to be beyond forgettable, beyond stupid. I just couldn't force myself to care about it. The only good I'll say is is the world building was amazing. Getting to see Roland a little bit and kind of how he turned out the way he is, amazing. And getting to really get more of a deep dive into his friends Cuthbert and Elaine, but you don't even really get 100% find what happened to them. He alludes to it. I'm sure we'll find out later. As well as you get some knowledge about some artifacts and stuff and some or glam. I'm not gonna go into that, but that was awesome. And when they end the backflash or the backstory, it goes back into regular Stephen King, in my opinion, in his prime, where he's telling weird, somewhat real, somewhat like just the weird prose he has, the pop culture, and I just loved it. And that's after the flashback. I thought the entire flashback, it just was sad. I thought it could be way cooler. And it was good objectively throughout the whole thing. As for giving you a feel for some more of the world building stuff, and I do love a good world building. But that's what it felt like. It felt like 100 pages of them like kind of getting settled. He finally tells a story, and then when he's telling it, he it's just like you get some lore, but it's like I don't care anymore. I'm trying to look where it actually started with him telling a story. Yeah, part two. I think Susan. So 150 pages. Yeah, I mean, and that's where this thing starts. I'm really torn against this rating because it was very high fluctuation. I just think this whole book could have been done away with. Like, it could have been much smaller. It could have been much more of a side. Like even wanting to do the world building, even wanting to do the backstory, even saying that that is Roland's story. That's the story King chose because I don't want to be like, oh, it could have been different to change it. That's like dumb. We could have shaved 300 pages off this book and been fine. So my kind of thing is either just make the backstory non-existent and really flesh out more stuff, or he could have a lot of different stuff. I just feel like it didn't really enhance a lot of his reader, and I'm trying to do the expanded read where the other novels to enhance like The Stand and other stuff. So I really do want to appreciate it. And there was some nods to that with Randall Flagg, with Abigail, and some other really cool stuff that if you've read The Stand, you will appreciate. The like his friends were cool. I really like Cuthbert and Elaine. I really like commenting about that. But I said that every other character in the backstory, there's a mayor, there's a sheriff guy, there's their deputy, there's Reimer, there's Avery, there's all these characters I can name, and they're all boring. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. They are all so mind-numbingly boring. Um, and it just felt like he added this whole cast for no reason. One of the things I love about Stephen King is he adds this amazing cast, and you get to like them even if they die. The Stand, he built this amazing cast, and I felt like I at least cared about them or I liked them where they were fleshed out characters. These guys are just dumb. And I'm not trying to pick about the writing or anything like that, or say I actually hated it. Like I said, much more neutral for me. I just found myself like, and there's a lot more of that Stephen King creepiness. There was some weird sexual stuff going on. I don't really care for. I get it was part of the storytelling narrative, but it's again one of those things where it's also one of those classic like there's like a plot hole where it's like if this one thing happened differently, they're gonna stand out in the bar, they kill these guys, the whole book would have been prevented basically. Um, Another thing though, I do understand it does make sense that they are young boys in this book. It's like 13, 14. I get it. You're not making sound decisions, right? What kid that age is. I think it's great for world building. I think it's great for understanding some stuff for how Roland is. I found the biggest draw and I mean like what I've heard people saying even right here. It's a romance. Um, Longo romance of Witcher and Evil. That's what's being marketed as. This is more of a romance. I mean, not only, but it was just awful romance. I didn't find the love believable. It didn't make sense. I didn't care for Susan. I didn't care for. I mean, and that's not to be like I didn't like. Part of me just didn't like her character. It was just boring. I don't think it was well done. And then part of me just didn't like her as a character. Like, let's say she was well written, kind of. And then like Roland in this, I think is very well written. I just don't like some of the actions he took, but that's a different story. And I think like the whole book screamed to me was King got this far. He had a really good grasp of Roland and what he wanted to do with the story. And he's like, how do I fill in the shit that makes this make sense? Like, so, into some sort of, not even traumatic, but just, let's insert some story. Like, you know what I mean? It was kind of like how certain authors will talk about how they have this cool idea and then they do all this work around to justify it. Like, Brandon Sanderson has in one of his speaking said, like, I want this really cool gem-based power armor fantasy crap. So I did all this stuff to justify it, right? It's what it feels like. He has Roland, he wants to do a backstory. Again, I would have loved this book, I think, much higher if backstory starts, there's like 50, 100 pages of exposition. Could have been so much faster. And again, I'm not someone who's impatient. It just needs to have a purpose, and it really didn't. Right? And again, that's subjective. That's my feeling. I like a lot of long movies. Are 2.5 hours. A lot of nothing happens, but it seems to add to it. Right? Like some of my favorite movies are Midnight Cowboy and Taxi Driver. Those are very long films that were a lot of it's just fucking ambience and stuff. So I want to make it clear that's not the reason I'm disliking it. I just found not only was there were so many pages where if that page wasn't there, it wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't make a difference. Like you know what I mean? Like it didn't even tell me all that. He would just I mean like and again, there's cool stuff here too. I'm not saying skim and just be like, man walk here, bar, horse, counting, conflict. I don't want you to caveman speak it. Um there's just a middle path, I feel like. And I you can tell this review's long on my other books because this is probably one of the more polarizing ones for me. I don't know how I feel as much. The ones I'm very confident. I've been really enjoying the series up till now. And even this one, I did enjoy. I actually read it really fast. I picked it up. I think I read like a page or just whatever. And then I think like no, I read like a little bit, like 50 pages, and I dropped it for like a week again, and then I just picked it up, read like 100 pages, and then like in a span of 48 hours, I finished like the other 600 pages. I destroyed it. So I really did like it, but I found a lot of the reading, like I said, was just me forcing myself to get to the part where I felt like it would be good. And the ending, and I'm gonna put this right here. Spoiler alert: the ending has has Susan, has the love interest. She dies, but they allude to this the entire book. You can see it coming miles away. It's not unique, and it just doesn't. I just don't like how it's done. I'm gonna go. So again, more spoilers here. I'm just gonna kind of go into it and fully vent. This is more for someone who's already read it or just what doesn't care. Roland is like lost in love with Susan. It makes sense. Young guy, nothing clear. We've all been there, guy or girl. Okay, she's doing this. Conflict happens. They get captured. She frees them. All of a sudden, he's like, "Wait, my mission. I don't care about her. As painful as this, I'm just gonna leave and flee or whatever." And he has this plan. He doesn't care that she's captured. They're not gonna hurt her, and then she gets killed. Now he's devastated she dies, but doesn't do anything. Doesn't go back there and like wreak havoc or murder them all, which you'd think he'd do if it arranged and he has the skill to do. So I found it just didn't make sense. He was smitten so bad that Cuthbert had to smack him, knock some sense, and even almost Elaine did at a later point too. And they were so messed up, or he was so messed up, excuse me, right? And so it makes sense if, okay, he's lost his way, he's so obsessed. Boom, gotta have an intervention. And then he's like, maybe we don't need her. No. They do the intervention thingy, punches Roland, and then the plot continues like 150 whatever pages. They're planning this, and it's just like, that doesn't make sense. Why would you randomly, in the heat of things, be like, yeah, I don't care? Like, in the context of the story, they love each other so deeply. They were going to get married. She threw away his life for him and vice versa. They were co-conspirators, and I'm pretty sure she had his kid. So it's like, oh, I don't care. And that's what I don't like. And it's not that I couldn't see Roland making that sacrifice, because he does that a lot. I don't get the timing of it. Why would you be obsessed with this person, have an intervention, and then still be obsessed with her, only to randomly be like it just was so horribly done. It was almost just like he's just like, oh yeah, I don't care. It wasn't like a gradual thing where he like grappled with it a lot. He's like, and yeah, they obviously show he was like a little upset. I just didn't buy it. I thought it was dumb, and it made me believe that he didn't care about Susan at all, which just sounds like, I know Roland can be callous, but it's not Roland. Or it made it sound like he just randomly was like, I don't know, you know what I mean? And I think it was just kind of executed really poorly. I really enjoyed seeing Cuthbert and Elaine. I really enjoyed seeing their camaraderie. I really enjoyed the world building. I really enjoyed before the actual backstory happened, and I really enjoyed after. There was about 400, almost 500 pages of this book where I just couldn't give less of a shit. Yeah, you gotta read to understand the story. You gotta power through to understand some mechanics, or not mechanics, but some things that happened. There are some parts of this book that are very good. I'm thinking 6. Oh, I could almost go 7. I'm gonna give it a 6. I think 6.5. We'll do 6.5 because I almost want to go lower, but at the same time, my grading scale is like a 5. Is like meh. There might have been some parts I enjoyed, some parts I didn't like. I just wasn't impressed. I'm not rereading a 5. I don't care. I don't dislike it. Where like this book unfortunately has quite a few sections that are like 8s. You know, it's awesome. Maybe almost even a 9. And there's just some parts where it's like a 2 or 3 where I just couldn't give less of a shit. And I think all in all, this is a book that you can read quickly. You're going to be speed reading a lot of it. A lot of it's just stupid information about characters that don't matter, aren't in depth, and are just die anyways, have no relevance to the plot. I think all in all, it is. I don't want to say a book. It is out of the grand scheme of writing, and those grand scheme, particularly in fiction, it is a decent to good book. Out of the grand scheme of Stephen King, it is one of his weaker works I've encountered yet. It might be the weakest. And out of the grand scheme of The Dark Tower, it is definitely the weakest entry so far. I will say, coming into this, I'm very bummed. I was really hoping to be in the side like because I know a lot of people. Like, I know one of the guys I watch. I gotta get. I want to give him credit. I want to use his name. But he's got like he's like, this is my favorite book of all time. You can read it solo. This I just couldn't care for it. I really couldn't, and I feel bad because I'm by no means a Stephen King expert. I've read, I want to say, Dark Tower series, and then I read like basics like Shining, Stand, Misery, and I'll do some reviews on those later. A couple of ones I'm forgetting. Stand, yeah. What else? I don't remember. I mean, I'm reading Salem's Lot next. I'm trying to actually follow that. Some of the YouTubers' expanded reads, and this is just definitely his weakest work. Um, I found myself so painfully not caring. He did a good job painting the world and the backstory. He did a good job articulating like the world building was literally a 10. It was amazing. 9, 9. It was good. It was not perfect. He had great world building. He made me really understand some of the stuff. It was really cool. I felt like what world building does. It feels like an actual world, not like you're being sold a world. Not like there's these weird, dumb, unbelievable words. Oh, this is a world. Oh, this is how people talk. Oh, I'm getting a sense for what the world is and where it is now in the present day with the cadet. I just I couldn't force myself to care that much. And again, in the backstory, in the flashback, I know I'm rambling. There is Roland and his two friends. There is maybe Susan, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are the only interesting characters. The only interesting characters. Every other character he gives a lot of detail to, but it's like, I just don't care. I couldn't care less. And the reason I don't care is because they're not interesting characters. They have no relevance. Almost all of them die or just go their own way. And the ones that don't die, literally Roland, when he's done the backlash, explains what happened to them, and it's not important. As well as a lot of the antagonists are lame, or like and the only somewhat interesting character like Jonas, he's not the best either, but he's close to an interesting character. And he was like, I think a failed gunslinger, an exiled gunslinger, and I think that's cool. And again, the world building's phenomenal. The whole reap, the harvest festival thing they got going on, the moon, the kissing moon, the blood moon, the demon moon, the face, so like some soul eater, just awesome vibes, right? Just loving it, and like how they have the little thinny, the little noise thing, the present, or how they have the little sit, or the X, like these oil fields. There's almost like this thing that we think is so normal, but how it's just so cool. The world building is there. The beginning and endings are super strong, and the ending of the inside story, the flashback, is strong. I just don't think I'm going to solidly end it at a 6.5 rating. I can't give it anything higher. Well, we're going to keep going on the books.